Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Thanks for having me.
Today we're looking at the 2024 election,
Okay.
but through a very specific lens.
Right.
The perspectives of some low-income voters
Mm.
and their views on Trump's potential policies.
Interesting.
You shared some interesting sources with us,
Okay.
a Washington Post article and some pretty heated discussions from Reddit.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
We're excited to unpack this with you.
Yeah, it's always fascinating to delve into the why behind
Right.
people's choices,
For sure.
especially in the realm of politics.
Especially in politics, yeah.
We often see these voting patterns that on the surface appear to contradict individual economic interests.
Absolutely.
And that's where things get really interesting.
That's where it gets good.
Yeah.
The Washington Post article, for instance, paints a really vivid picture
Okay.
of this woman, Lori Mosura, a single mother in Newcastle, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
She's struggling financially, juggling a part-time job, relying on food stamps,
Right.
and often facing these impossible choices like whether to afford car repairs or keep the lights on.
And yet she voted for Trump.
And yet she voted for Trump.
Interesting.
What's intriguing here is that Newcastle,
Yeah.
a city with high poverty rates, has traditionally leaned Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
understanding her rationale
Right.
for voting Trump,
Yeah.
despite his proposed policies that could potentially impact the very program she depends on, is crucial.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like her personal story encapsulates this larger trend
Yeah,
of low-income voters supporting Trump.
totally.
The article hints at her belief that Trump understands the struggles of everyday people better than the wealthy elite.
Okay.
But it's hard to reconcile that with the potential consequences
Yeah.
of his policies.
Yeah, it speaks to the power of perception, right?
Yeah,
And the narratives that resonate with voters.
for sure.
Perhaps Lori sees in Trump a champion for the forgotten man,
Right.
someone who speaks their language
Mm-hmm.
and acknowledges their struggles, even if the solutions he offers
Yeah.
might not align with their economic reality.
And that's where those Reddit discussions
Yes.
you shared become so revealing.
Uh-huh.
They're filled with this mix of disbelief,
Yeah.
cynicism, and anger
Oh, yeah.
directed at low-income Trump voters.
Okay.
Many comments express this sentiment of they're voting against their own interests.
Right.
And it's clear there's a sense of frustration
Mm-hmm.
and a lack of understanding.
One recurring theme is this concern that these voters are essentially cutting off the very safety net they rely on.
Yeah.
For example, one user writes they've been told they paid taxes for others' social safety net, but they're about to realize the only social safety net to protect them is getting voted away, and they never were paying significant taxes.
That comment really stood out to me as well.
Yeah.
It highlights the potential consequences
Yeah.
of policies like tax cuts for the wealthy
Yep.
and reductions in social programs, particularly on those who rely on them.
Mhm.
It suggests a transfer of wealth upwards, which essentially means resources are flowing from those who need them most to those who already have plenty.
This raises a crucial question.
Yeah.
How can we bridge this gap in understanding?
Right.
How do we reconcile the beliefs of these voters with the potential real-world impact of the policies they're supporting?
And that's where the Reddit comments become even more interesting,
Okay.
because we see a wide range of opinions.
Okay.
Some users express sympathy for Lori's situation, acknowledging the hardships she's facing, but many more seem to think she's getting what she deserves.
Really?
It reveals this deep divide in perspectives, and it makes you wonder, what role does misinformation
Yeah.
or lack of information play in shaping these voting decisions?
The Reddit threads are full of colorful language
Oh, wait, that?
and strong opinions.
Oh, yeah.
One user sarcastically writes,
Okay.
every time I see someone with a Trump flag complaining about being broke, I am reminded of the fact that they bought a stupid fucking Trump flag with money. This comment, while humorous, underscores the perceived disconnect
Yeah.
between actions and complaints.
Totally.
And then there's this almost prophetic line.
Okay.
Leopards are going to be eating a lot of faces.
Oh, my gosh.
It's dark humor, sure,
Yeah.
but it reflects the sentiment of inevitability.
Right.
The idea that these voters will ultimately face the consequences of their choices.
Ow.
It's a harsh sentiment, no doubt,
Yeah.
but it points to this growing sense of frustration among those who feel these voters are actively contributing to their own hardship by supporting policies that could ultimately harm them.
It's really fascinating
Yeah.
to see such a range of strong opinions.
Yeah. It's a complex situation
Yeah.
with a lot of layers to unpack.
sure.
But the Reddit comments,
Yeah.
despite their often sarcastic tone,
Right.
do offer some valuable insights.
Okay.
They reveal this deep-seated resentment towards those perceived as relying on government assistance,
Sure.
even if those programs are designed to provide a basic safety net.
It's like that outdated welfare queen stereotype
Right.
that persists despite evidence to the contrary.
Exactly.
There's this tendency to pit those who are struggling against each other
Yeah.
instead of focusing on the systemic issues that contribute to poverty in the first place.
Exactly. It creates this us versus them mentality,
Right.
fueled by this narrative that hard-earned tax dollars are going to those who are undeserving.
Right.
This perspective often ignores the reality that social safety net programs are a collective investment in the well-being of society as a whole.
We see this reflected in the comment about people being told they've paid taxes
Right.
for others' social safety net,
Yeah.
when in reality their contributions might not have been substantial.
Exactly.
It highlights this lack of understanding about how these programs work
Right.
and the interconnectedness of our economic system.
It speaks to a broader societal shift
Yeah,
away from the idea of shared responsibility.
for sure.
We've lost sight of the understanding that a society that cares for its most vulnerable members is ultimately a stronger and more prosperous society for everyone.
But how do we shift that narrative?
Right.
Especially when figures like Trump
Yeah.
promote policies that could dismantle the social safety net.
It's a challenge.
Yeah, it feels like an uphill battle
Yeah.
against deeply ingrained beliefs and political rhetoric.
I think it starts with understanding the psychology behind these voting decisions.
Okay.
It's not just about economic anxiety.
Right.
It's about identity, belonging, and the search for meaning in a world that feels increasingly chaotic and uncertain.
Some Reddit users also point to the influence of misinformation and propaganda,
For sure.
particularly from certain media outlets that reinforce existing biases and fears.
That's a crucial factor to consider.
Yeah.
If people are constantly bombarded with messages that confirm their existing worldview,
Right.
it becomes incredibly difficult to break through those echo chambers and present them with alternative perspectives.
And it seems like Trump is particularly adept
Yeah.
at tapping into those deep-seated anxieties and channeling them into a potent political force.
Absolutely.
He offers these simplistic solutions to complex problems
Yeah.
and scapegoats the other for society's ills,
Right.
which can resonate strongly with those feeling left behind.
Absolutely. He's a master of emotional manipulation.
Yeah.
And for those who are already struggling and feeling disillusioned with the system, his message can be incredibly alluring.
One Reddit user's comment captures this sense of impending doom.
Oh, okay.
The poor are going to get totally screwed the next few years,
Right.
given Trump's track record and stated policy goals.
Yeah.
It's a prediction that carries weight.
The potential consequences of these policies are indeed alarming.
For sure.
We're talking about cuts to programs like food stamps, Medicaid, and Social Security programs that millions of Americans depend on.
Right.
The ripple effects would be felt throughout the economy
Yeah.
as people lose access to health care, education, and job training.
It paints a bleak picture.
It does.
And it makes you wonder, what does it say about the state of our democracy?
Right.
If people are voting against their own interests, or at least not fully grasping the potential consequences of their choices.
It raises serious questions about the health of our democracy
Yeah.
and the factors influencing voter behavior. The erosion of trust in institutions, the widening gap between the rich and poor,
Yeah.
and the pervasive influence of misinformation all contribute to this disconnect
Right.
between beliefs and reality.
So what can we do?
Right.
How do we even begin to address these systemic issues and counteract the forces that seem to be driving us towards greater division and inequality?
It's easy to feel overwhelmed,
Yeah.
but I believe there are reasons for optimism.
Okay.
We're witnessing a growing awareness of these issues,
Okay.
a renewed emphasis on civic education and media literacy,
Mm.
and a surge in grassroots activism around economic inequality and social justice.
But is that enough? To counter the powerful forces shaping voter behavior in ways detrimental to so many Americans?
That's the million-dollar question,
Yeah.
and there's no easy answer.
Right.
But I believe that by engaging in thoughtful dialogue,
Okay.
challenging our own assumptions, and working collaboratively to build a more just and equitable society,
Yeah.
we can start to turn the tide.
Those are encouraging words.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even amidst the complexity and challenges, individual actions and collective efforts can make a difference.
We must remember that Stories like Lori's, though disheartening, serve as a powerful reminder that the choices we make in the voting booth have tangible consequences.
So where do we go from here?
Right.
We've explored the complexities of voting decisions within the context of economic hardship, misinformation, and political polarization.
Huh.
But how do we translate that understanding into meaningful action?
We've covered a lot of ground,
Yeah,
in our deep dive into the motivations of low-income voters, particularly those who support policies that might seem counterintuitive to their economic situation.
for sure.
For sure. As we wrap up, I'm curious to hear what stands out to you from these sources.
Honestly, the disconnect between Lori's belief in Trump as a savior figure and the potential impact of his policies on her own life,
Right.
it's really striking.
Yeah.
It highlights the immense power of narrative and emotional connection in shaping people's political choices, sometimes even overriding logic and self-interest.
It's a fascinating example of how deeply personal narratives can intertwine with broader political trends.
Yes.
Lori's story, while unique, reflects a larger pattern of voters prioritizing emotional resonance and perceived shared values over policy specifics.
Okay.
This suggests that addressing economic anxiety effectively requires more than just presenting facts and figures.
Right. It's about understanding the deeper emotional needs and aspirations that drive these choices. We see this reflected in the Reddit discussions as well.
Yeah.
One user bluntly states they've been fed a narrative of grievance and resentment for so long that they can't see the forest for the trees.
That comment speaks to the insidious power of misinformation and propaganda, especially in an age of fragmented media and online echo chambers.
Right.
When people are constantly exposed to information that reinforces their existing beliefs, it becomes incredibly challenging to break through those filters and present alternative perspectives.
It raises concerns about the future of informed decision-making in a democracy.
Yeah.
If truth itself becomes subjective and malleable,
Yeah.
how can we ensure that voters are making choices based on accurate information and a clear understanding of the potential consequences?
It underscores the importance of critical thinking and media literacy.
For sure.
We need to equip ourselves with the tools to discern fact from fiction, to recognize bias and manipulation, and to evaluate information sources critically.
It's a daunting task, especially in an environment where misinformation spreads rapidly and algorithms often prioritize engagement over accuracy.
Absolutely. But I believe we can foster a more discerning and informed public discourse.
Okay.
Initiatives focused on promoting media literacy, fact-checking resources, and open dialogues across ideological divides are crucial steps in the right direction.
And perhaps by understanding the underlying emotional needs and aspirations of voters like Lori, we can start to bridge the gap between differing perspectives and find common ground for constructive dialogue.
Indeed, empathy and understanding are essential for navigating these complex issues.
Yeah.
Recognizing the human stories behind the political rhetoric can help us move beyond simplistic labels and engage in more nuanced and productive conversations.
Ultimately, I think this deep dive has revealed the crucial need for a more informed, empathetic, and engaged citizenry.
Yeah.
It's a call to action for all of us to critically evaluate the information we consume, to engage in respectful dialogue with those who hold different views, and to advocate for policies that promote the well-being of all members of our society.
Well said. It's a reminder that we all have a role to play in shaping a more just and equitable future. By embracing critical thinking, fostering empathy, and actively participating in our democracy, we can navigate these turbulent times and create a society that reflects our shared values and aspirations.
On that note, I think we'll wrap up this deep dive.
Sounds good.
We've explored some challenging terrain, uncovered thought-provoking insights, and hopefully sparked some new ideas for you.
Hopefully.
So remember, the conversation doesn't end here.
It doesn't.
Continue to explore, question, and engage with the world around you.
Thank you for joining us on this journey.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
We encourage you to share your thoughts and continue the conversation.
Please do.
Until next time, keep diving deep.